Greetings and welcome to CS133J query. In this course, we'll go over jQuery. In this lesson, we're going over JS libraries in review before we even get started on jQuery. So, with that, jump over to the course. We're going to do an overview of everything, and then we'll go into the lesson. But first of all, what is jQuery? Well, it's just a small, fast, feature-rich JavaScript library, right? But what is a library, right? Well, a library is a bunch of pre-written JavaScript code that allows for easier development of JavaScript, right? It makes it easier to use JavaScript. So, in this course, we're going to focus on first, what is a library, right? So, we talked about that, but what does that mean? And then how to use jQuery, which is what most of the course is going to be, but not most of today's lesson. So with that, one thing we need to look at, and this is going to specifically look at jQuery and JavaScript, is why, what's the point of it, right? And then how does it work? So in this case, this is just an example of what JavaScript looks like, right? If I want to get an element by ID, I will actually have the ID. Now it's not going to have this hashtag here. That's just how it's put in here. But again, the concept is, right, this is how you select it, and then down here, this is all it takes in jQuery, right? So instead of all of this, you just do this. And this becomes more and more useful as you go through other JavaScript things, right? If you're getting all of the elements, right, you have to loop through everything and go through it, and we'll go more of those examples in a second, but this is, the concept, right? This is the JavaScript version. This is the jQuery version. They do exactly the same thing, right? This gets this element. This gets this element, right? So as we go through the next few minutes, we'll talk about kind of what else. There's other things that can help you. Well, jQuery is designed to just make JavaScript easier. So with that, we'll go ahead and go through straight into the lesson. There's more materials if you come back here, but let's get into the lesson, right? Again, our goal is to kind of really understand how these libraries work in JavaScript, and then we'll go over the basics of jQuery in this. Lots and lots of libraries you can go back and look through. I'm going to talk about a few of them, but just to give you an idea of how they work. So in this first one, this is just JavaScript, right? Just JavaScript. We have our web page, we have our external JavaScript file. You could also have your JavaScript down here in the bottom, but we have an external JavaScript file, and we got our ID, we get it by class name, we add event listeners, right? You can see all the code it takes to work through all of these different pieces, right? So in this case, when I click on the image, right, it changed the heading, right? It selected all of these. I needed to loop through all of them, and I selected through the class, right? So that's just JavaScript, right? That's how you would do this in JavaScript. You select the element, and then you make the change, right? So that's how I changed inner HTML. You select all the elements, and then you loop through them, and then you change the style of the color, right? So that's how JavaScript works. Now, in this, there's different types of libraries, right? So the first one we're going to look at is React. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but it's designed to move things around, right? Be reactive, so when you change items. And the big thing we want to look at in this, right, is getting the actual file in there, right? To use it, you need to bring the file in, and as we go through, you'll kind of see more and more. But you can go to React. There's a bunch of information. It's great for building interfaces, and it just kind of shows you how it works, right? So we're not doing this one, but you can see, right, as you go through it, it allows you to just do, in this case, interfaces better, right? jQuery helps you just do JavaScript better. This specifically is designed to make JavaScript easier for using interfaces. All right, but let's go down to something like Python, JS and Python together. So in this case, right, we are getting, and we'll go over this a little bit more in a second, but we got to get the actual Python code, right? We have to get the code, and then we can start using it. So if what I'm about to show you, if you don't have this line of code, which actually gets the Python, right, that's the library, then this code doesn't work, right? So in this case particularly, we're making it so you can use what looks like Python in order to do what you're used to doing in JavaScript, right? So if you want to do some Python, but you want to still be able to do it in a web page, right? This Python allows you to do this. So in this case, right, we have our script tag, and you can see we have to do our imports just like Python, right? But the code up here takes this code and makes it work just like a regular thing, right? So here's a function, and it does an alert, right? And then this is the event listener. Again, so it's designed to look like Python, but at the end of the day, this is an event listener. It's running a click code. It's running the echo command, just like JavaScript. And then this is what the function looks like. So again, these very similar to how JavaScript work. And when I click on it, I get my little pop-up. So again, in this case, we have a few things that you need to do in order to get it working, right? Otherwise, it's JavaScript, right? So this isn't necessarily making it any easier. This one just lets you make it look like you're coding in Python. So how do we get these libraries in, right? Well, there's two different ways to do it, right? There's CDN, Content Delivery Networks, or you can literally just put the whole file on your system, and I'll show you that in a second as well. So in this case, we're getting the React, right? So this is how you get the React from the CDN. So this is where the CDN is. But you could also actually have the library right here, right? So if I wanted to have the library as a file, this would be option number 2. So again, option number 1, Content Delivery Network. So the downside is if that goes down or your connection to that CDN goes down, all of the code that relies on it doesn't work. However, it keeps updated, so if there's updates to it. Now, normally they don't. You normally go to a very specific file, especially in jQuery, because you don't want it to update because it might break all your code. But the bottom line is, right, it's going to another web page, right? Someone else is storing your file. And a lot of libraries allow you to download the file, and in this case, again, I don't have code in this one particularly, but pretend all the code's here. I can just link directly to it, right? And then you go down here, and whenever you're using your JavaScript down here, you have access to all those abilities, right? So let me show you real quickly what it looks like, right? So here is the jQuery code, right? Probably don't understand a lot of it, and there's a lot of this is why I didn't have it in that one file, right? Here's all the jQuery code. Now this is one version of it, right? And this is the version right here, and this is why I say normally you link to one. But again, you see I have all this code. I could put this code in a file, and then normally what you'll do though is you get the compressed code, right? And in this case, it's just all on one line, and you kind of see it scrolling across my screen. It doesn't work very well in Trinket. But again, I can have all the code right there, same version, and then when I'm in the actual file, right, I can just, or on the web server, I can just link right to it, right? So again, pros and cons of each of them, right? You're relying on someone else to have the file and have access to the file and all those features, but you don't have to store it on yourself, right? You don't have to, and a lot of times they're quicker, right? Because the whole point of the content delivery network is to have them all over the place, servers all over the country. So if someone goes to your web page, they get the file from something closer to them, versus if they have to download it from you, then wherever your server is, and it might just be one server somewhere, depending on what your hosting is. This allows you to actually let someone else manage all that for you versus putting it on your server. But again, pros and cons. If you have it on your server, you know they can get it because you have it, but you have to manage it. You have to have the storage for it and all of that. But that's the basics of JavaScript and library, right? We went over how JavaScript works, because basically as we go through this, jQuery is just going to do what JavaScript does, right? This is kind of what I'm showing you right here, right? jQuery just does JavaScript a little bit easier for you. But we'll go over, if you watch the other videos throughout this course, right? You watch the videos, it'll go ahead and show you how all of this is done. But that's the basics of just libraries, right? That's the point of this lesson, to get you through what libraries are, a quick review of JavaScript, and then just showing you other libraries and a basic understanding of how you can employ them into your system. So with that, that's all I have for this lesson. You'll have the practices and challenges to work on. Have a good one. We'll see you next lesson.